two buses do the same route, but one of them is yellow and one of them is purple. And the yellow bus driver is a very skilled driver. A good leader will find out what they are good at and value that.
And who's just focused on delivery. So in your own view, how has project leadership evolved over the past decade?
When I think back to the 1990s, we were using the most basic of software to coordinate teams and the most basic, telephone conference calls to communicate. When I was working actively on projects in the 90s, sometimes the first thing you'd do when you got into the office was check your email. You'd turn on your computer, you check your email. Now, a lot of people, the first thing they do when they wake up is check their email, and the last thing they do before they go to bed. In thinking about challenges for 2025, to not talk about AI, because I think there are a number of elements to AI that are going to be challenges for us as project leaders.
What would be one piece of advice for project leaders preparing for 2025?
Project leaders to do is to think about how they can create as much headspace as possible.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Life on IT Project Management, where we take you on journeys connecting life and IT project management, filling the gap with practical, relatable content tailored for everyone, from kids to seasoned professionals. I am your ever-learning host, Justus Ayala. Today, we have a very special guest, Mike Clayton, the CEO of Online PM Courses, a powerhouse in project management training and resources. With over 2 decades of experience in project management, of course, Mike is a respected thought leader in project management. He has authored more than 14 books and more than 10 ebooks, including the highly acclaimed Brilliant Project Leader, which is what we'll be deep diving into today. Mike's engaging keynote speeches and comprehensive training programs have empowered over 4,000 professionals to excel in their careers. His two platforms, Online PM Courses and myclayton.co.uk, are trusted sources of high quality, practical, and accessible project management education. They help individuals and organizations achieve their project goals with confidence and excellence. His YouTube channel at Online PM Courses boasts over 106,000 subscribers, further showcasing his dedication to sharing his wealth of knowledge. Mike's unwavering commitment to the project management profession and his passion for education make him a highly respected figure in the community. Let's give a warm welcome to Mike Clayton.
Thank you very much, Justus. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we deep dive into it. I will begin with, of course, the topic is becoming a project leader in 2025. Becoming a project leader in 2025. So we will start with one question, which is around defining things. Now, when you speak of effective leadership, Mike, what baselines? I wouldn't probably say corporate, but what baselines define effective project leadership in your view?
For me, I use the example of two buses do the same route, that are the same basic bus, but one of them is yellow and one of them is purple. And the yellow bus driver is a very skilled driver. They know how to follow the route, they know the route really well, and they know how to maintain their bus, and they can make sure that they get there on time every time. The purple bus driver also knows the route really well. They also know how to maintain the bus and drive safely. The difference is that the purple bus driver, whenever you get on the bus, they have a chat with you. They get to know you. They learn about the people on their bus and they give advice. They give guidance. They support those people who might be having trouble some days. And so what happens when the bus breaks down, as it inevitably will one day? With the yellow bus, the people on the bus will trust the driver, so they'll get out of the bus and they'll stand around and they'll chat in the confident knowledge that the bus driver will fix the bus and get on his way quickly. When the purple bus breaks down, people get off the bus and they help the driver. They ask what the driver needs. They ask if they can hold tools or help with the heavy work, or perhaps go and get the driver a drink or some food while they're maintaining the bus. To me, the yellow bus driver is a very competent project manager, but the purple bus driver is a project leader. This is somebody that people want to follow. They don't just believe that the yellow bus driver can get them there safely. They want to go with the purple bus driver. They want to enjoy the journey because they know that they will get more out of it than just going from A to B. And so I think there are kind of 4 essentials that the purple bus driver, the project leader, needs to focus on that go beyond what a project manager does. And I think the first of them is they need to get to know each individual on their team for who they are. They need to understand those people. They need to appreciate what makes them tick, what they want to achieve. And also, I think the really difficult thing is to appreciate the skills that they have rather than deprecate the weaknesses. It is oh so easy to look at someone on your team and say, oh, I wish they could do this, or if only they were better at that. But actually, a good leader will find out what they are good at and value that. Secondly, they need to make sure that everyone on the team knows, understands, and commits to the plan. Thirdly, they need to build a sense of team spirit so that everyone wants to be part of the team and is happy to care for and collaborate with their teammates, which gives a real resilience and robustness to the team. And finally, they've got to foster a sense of good communication, so the team will communicate with one another and will make sure that everybody knows what their role is and how they can contribute.
Fantastic. So you've spoken to being aware of the strengths of each team member, helping them understand what the goals are clearly, helping them fostering teamwork, a healthy team basically, then also facilitating improved communications, transparent communications within team members. Now, in your own view, when anyone looks into that, it looks like a marriage of some sort. But in your own view, when anyone looks at that, how has that evolved over the years? Because I do remember that the perspective many professionals originally would have, well, when I say original, like, okay, fine, going back 3-4 decades, the perspective, like the Peter Drucker time and all that, the perspective they would have would be someone who is firm and someone who does not, interact, someone who does not engage, someone who does not care, and who is just focused on delivery. So in your own view, how has that evolved over time? How has project leadership evolved over the past decade?
I think your choice of the word evolved is a very, very important word. There hasn't been any radical change in leadership styles and needs. It's been an evolution in our understanding. If you go back to the 1940s, 1950s, yes, you had very much the kind of controlling style of leadership, do this, do that. And that, by the time I was active in my first project leadership roles in the 1990s, that was already a thing of the past. And what I was starting to see, I worked on a couple of international projects, and I was starting to see the early use of international teams on ordinary business projects. I mean, of course, the biggest projects had international teams for many years, but we were starting to use technologies like voicemail and conference calls to coordinate teams. But of course, that's now evolved. And not only, everyone points to the fact that remote working is becoming much more of a big thing these days. And of course it is, yes. And we know that COVID has really accelerated that. But that's been an evolutionary change. I think what has really changed is the tools we've got available. When I think back to the 1990s, we were using the most basic of software to coordinate teams and the most basic, telephone conference calls to communicate. Now we've got tools like we're using to record this podcast, things like Zoom, Teams, all of these much more effective. When I was a kid, visual calls, video calls were science fiction. They were something that we looked at as a possible thing for the future that nobody really believed would ever happen. Of course, it's happened now. But what hasn't changed is that we still haven't really deeply understood how to lead remotely. We've got a lot of ideas, and we know to a large degree that actually the rules of remote leadership aren't that different to the rules of in-person leadership. You still have to be respectful of individuals. You have to get to know the people you're working with. You still have to understand the different cultures that people come from. But these are magnified. These problems and challenges are magnified because it's hard to create trust over a great distance, especially when there are different time zones. So not only do I not know if you're working while I'm working, but when I come to work and you've already gone to bed, so it's very easy then to start blaming people for faults or perceived faults when they're just, a voice or at best an image on a computer screen. And we don't have really good answers to that. We know that there must be some good answers out there, but the research is still lagging. And so that's evolving massively. And I think the other thing that is also evolving, project managers have always had this highly stressful work life that our projects will go through peaks and troughs of activities. And in the troughs, it can even get dull, but it's not too bad. We just work our way through. But at the peaks, we're desperately driving ourselves and our teams to deliver to deadlines on budget. to specification with huge number of stakeholders clamoring for attention and clamoring for us to do so. So that stress has always been there. But I think what has evolved over the last 10, maybe 20 years is this always on sense. Firstly, because we've got devices that mean that we can't distance ourselves from our email. You know, when I was working actively on projects in the 90s, sometimes the first thing you'd do when you got into the office was check your email. You'd turn on your computer, you'd check your email. Now, a lot of people, the first thing they do when they wake up is check their email, and the last thing they do before they go to bed is check their email. Sometimes they lie in bed checking their email. So we've got that always onness. And then you couple that with the other main aspect of remote working, which is even where you and I might share the same home office, we still might not see each other often because we are working from our own home. So we're not even going into the workplace office more than once, twice a week. And of course, that's great for many people, the fact that we don't have to commute. And therefore, we gain maybe half an hour, 2 hours at each end of the day to have a more productive home life, family life, hobbies. But some people are then using that time to extend their working day. And if your office is a corner of your living room or even a spare bedroom in your home, it's hard to turn off. And so I think the other big challenge for leaders is not just communicating with their teams and building that team environment. Bear with me, I'm just going to... Not only now are we having to deal with all the stresses of the work, not only are we having to deal with all the stresses of working at home, we can't separate ourselves. So for team leaders and for project leaders, we've now got to manage the relationships with people remotely, and we've got to manage that stress. And that stress is something that's harder to deal with when we can't be with the people to assess it. We don't bump into people in the corridor as often, and therefore we don't pick up those subtle cues. And even if we do detect it, it's harder to take someone out for a coffee and say, let's have a chat. So my answer to this evolution thing is really around the combination of the remote working and the always on culture combined gives us a big challenge as project leaders to lead our people effectively.
You did speak to so many aspects of it. And one thing I kept going back to, you ended with being close to being aware as a project leader, being aware of the cultures, and also doing what we can with regards to fostering that communication and that teamwork, team spirit, clarity on the goal and all of that. Now, yes, you also did mention that clarity on solving the problems haven't yet been fully defined, right? Moving forward from your book, Becoming a Project Leader, moving forward and projecting into 2025.
Yeah.
What do you, in solving these problems, what responsibilities rest on the different levels of project leadership? And I would start with, of course, the project manager is usually the first person to make responsible for leadership, right?
Yeah.
Now, above the project leader, when you speak of being aware of the difference in culture and all those things and understanding team members' strengths, all these things, all these elements sound like a project manager's will be in 2025 clearly a project manager's responsibility as opposed to anyone above the project manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So what do you see, what unique challenges would a project manager in 2025 have to resolve so that he effectively leads his or her project, sorry?
I think continuing on from those, the challenge is really to stay in touch with the people that are working with you, which was always the case, but it's more difficult. But I think we've now got, we're, I suppose, 2, 3, 4 years into real awareness of the impact of artificial intelligence that's coming. And I think, it would be odd not in thinking about challenges for 2025 to not talk about AI, because I think there are a number of elements to AI that are going to be challenges for us as project leaders. Firstly, we need to get to grips with it ourselves. We need to understand what AI can do for us. And yes, we also need to understand the risks that it poses, but I think those can be overplayed. It's certainly risks to our careers. I think the only project managers, project leaders that will be at risk career-wise are those that really don't understand AI, because then the generation that do understand AI will take the best roles. But there are risks in terms of good governance. There are risks in terms of data integrity. There are risks in terms of data security. So there are a whole load of risks, and we need to understand those. But also with AI, there are huge opportunities, and we need to understand how we can introduce AI into our teams and into our projects to support us for predicting schedules and budgets, for evaluating portfolios, for identifying risks, for allocating and scheduling staff. There's a huge number of things that AI will be able to do. Not just fill in reports, plausible text, but that's not the big challenge. The software manufacturers will produce all sorts of fantastic tools. The real challenge is adoption. Whenever you try to adopt a new piece of software, the wheels will spin and people will resist, and it will set the team back in terms of productivity initially. So we need to understand that. We need to understand the technology adoption life cycle and be smart about the way we bring it in, rather than just drop it on a project team. So AI is big. Oh, the other big thing, of course, the challenge for project leaders thinking about AI is the kind of projects we're going to be doing. Now, let's not forget that project management has been cyclical. There's been, in my career, I started my career in the upcycle of, in the UK, privatization of big industries. I worked on the rail privatization, and then the next big kind of cycle was deregulation of utilities, and so I worked on that. And then it was year 2000, I worked on that. Then it was the mass introduction by many companies of enterprise resource planning software, ERP software like Oracle, PeopleSoft, Barn, and SAP. And so there are cycles, and I think one of the coming cycles is going to be the implementation of AI software tools into organizations. And the project managers, the project leaders who understand what that AI can do and what the governance challenges are and what the adoption challenges are will get the exciting projects. And by the way, I think the same is also true, but perhaps 3, 4, 5 years beyond, with blockchain. I don't think many organizations are introducing blockchain technology yet. At the moment, blockchain technology in too many people's minds is just crypto, which is nonsense. Crypto is a marquee use case with many problems and around it, and crypto is not something I really understand nor particularly care to. But the blockchain itself as a technology can do lots more than just make money, and so we need to be aware of that. I think there are 2 other challenges that are linked that I want to highlight for 2025 and the near term. The first, obviously, is sustainability. Interestingly, PeopleCert, the people who have taken over ownership of Prince2, which is one of the big project management methodologies that you and your listeners will know all about, I'm sure, have introduced the UN sustainability goals into Prince2 standard. So new Prince2 practitioners are going to be expected to know about sustainability. It's part of the methodology to consider it, as it should be. And so there's a whole move towards sustainability and responsible project management that I think project leaders need to engage with. But I think coming hard on its heels is an even wider agenda, which is social value. I think in many countries like yours and mine, people are recognizing that projects are a force for change and therefore potentially a huge force for good, but that if all we do is we implement the project to the bare minimum standard, we are losing out on a massive opportunity to do good. So for many project managers now, starting to engage with the idea of social value as an objective of projects, to say, given that we have this project to do, how can we do it in such a way that it maximizes social value for marginal cost and possibly for no extra cost by just being thoughtful and careful. So I think there's a huge range of challenges that we need to engage with as project leaders over the next year or few.
Fantastic. So beyond, you've spoken to the skills and tactics that project managers in 2025 should, of course, be aware of and do what they can to quickly upskill. There will be AI tools. They should look out for AI tools that will enhance, for example, project planning, risk management, resource management, forecasting, financial planning, reporting, actually. So they should be abreast of those things. The adoption, however, is a different thing, right? It'll be enterprise per enterprise, right? Teams will have to, once the enterprise accepts an implementation or adopts specific solution, then the project manager is partly responsible for team adoption, right? So that the team can quickly benefit from that. But when it comes to governance, factoring the social components, right? it's great that Prince 2 has embraced that. So it seems APB. I don't know much about APB. You see, us here, for viewers who don't know where we are, I am based in Canada. I'm in Oshawa here, and Mike is based in
UK.
UK, yes. So there's different. So here in North America, PMI, right?
Yeah.
So PMI, PMI helps with establishing the PMBOK guide and stuff like that and driving it. Now, the current PMBOK guide, that's the 7th edition, the principles within factor embrace a lot of social, the social benefits and what could come up in the context of outcomes. So beyond tangible outcomes, the enterprise can benefit a lot from how a project is executed, right? The environment can benefit, the city can benefit, the country can benefit, right? So beyond that, those things are being brought in now, but there's a lot more to be done.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more to be done, yes. So that leads me to my next question. How important are soft skills like emotional intelligence and communication in the future landscape of project leadership in 2025 and beyond?
So I've given you some quite lengthy answers, but this one's the short answer. They're not negotiable. They are essential. They always have been. Project management has always been about people. Emotional intelligence is an umbrella term for our ability to work with people. Communication is the way, the medium by which or the set of media by which we work with people. They have always been central. They will always be central. I cannot envisage a future, even when AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and literally robots may well be doing the heavy lifting of construction projects, but there will still be a need for people to communicate with people. There will still be, if there are no stakeholders, if there are no human stakeholders, we might as well pack up and leave the planet. So these are all really critically important. And one of the things I've always said to project managers, once you understand the basics of delivering a project, if you want to work towards project mastery, the one thing you need to add into your, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month study, your whatever program of continuing professional development you follow, whatever the flavor of the month is, whether it's AI or social value or sustainability, you need to be learning about those. But the underpinning of all of this is become a student of psychology. Learn about people. Emotional intelligence is one framework. There are plenty of other frameworks and tool sets. Suck them up and absorb them and practice them, because they will always be the differentiator between the yellow bus competent project manager and the purple bus skilled project leader.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that detailed feedback. I think I was having a conversation with Bill, and I think Bill Dow, he mentioned specifically that helping the public and intending project managers and current project managers who are fearful for their current jobs, helping them understand that they should not forget that effective project leadership is two pieces: the art, which is the psychology part of it, and science, and that AI is not a poise to cover the arty part, the psychology part of it. There's still a lot to cover, solutioning to happen before AI can figure that part out, because we are different human beings, different cultures, different nuances. If human beings are dealing with the cultural nuances, how will that AI quickly figure, how would that be solutioned for effectively, right? But the science part of it is pretty much straightforward, right?
But even there are examples of AI being used for individual team member supervision. I'm not necessarily going to call it management or leadership, but supervision. AI can ask team members questions, give them feedback, comment on things. So, we are getting closer and closer, because the more evidence there is, the more recorded kind of documentation there is of how people interact. And let's face it, one of the reasons I always tell project managers they should be watching good quality movies, they should be going to the theatre, they should be reading novels, they should be watching good quality television dramas, is because the writers of those dramas, those books, are students of human behavior. And of course, what you're seeing is human behavior playing out. Now, of course, if you feed that as a learning set to AI, it will learn very effectively. And yes, there are huge cultural differences between people around the world, and we mustn't minimize that, but otherwise we start to risk cultural insensitivities. But the fact is that underlying us all is the same fundamental psychology. There are cultural norms that overlay that, but underneath it, we're all basically got the same brains and the same hormones. And that means that actually AI can probably do quite a good job, even now, having a conversation with someone. A couple of years ago, a friend and I decided to leave a club that we had been part of for many, many years. And he was pretty sanguine about it and just wrote a terse couple of lines, "Sorry, I'm off." And I wanted to write something much more carefully worded. And I spent about an hour wording my email really carefully. And I showed it to him and he said, "Okay." And then he put into, and this was a couple of years ago, so right at the start of ChatGPT, and he put into ChatGPT, I want to leave my social club. I want to write a short leaving letter that thanks the person who runs it for their time and does it in a polite but formal business like. Even then, ChatGPT wrote something which wasn't very different to what I'd written. And I spent an hour thinking about it, and I'd like to think I'm a good writer.
Yes.
So, there is really no knowing at this stage where it's going to stop, but I can't help thinking AI is going to be a major part of our work environment. And possibly we are going to be working alongside AI agents. So yes, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, people started having to get used to working with people from other cultures around the world, but in their work. We're going to have to start getting used to non-human colleagues, and goodness knows how that's going to work out.
Wow.
That's a challenge for project leaders, to have AI treated with respect by people who are wary of it.
Right. The funny thing that is this, and your perspective, and it's great that you mentioned that Elon Musk, there was one, I've forgotten what event it was just 2 weeks ago or so, thereabout, and he did speak to a vision of having an AI agent per professional.
Yeah.
And that is a bit problematic, because if the professional does not have clearly a clear value in the eyes of the enterprise, right?
Yeah.
If the professionals don't have a clear value, differential value, that the AI is able to, the AI can recommend, the AI can work on even AGIs and humanoids and all that, right? But they shouldn't get to a point where they can completely simulate and duplicate you.
No, I completely agree. But let's take a slightly different example. A lot of the big kind of professional services firms allocate mentors and coaches to all their senior people and to all their upcoming professionals as part of talent management. And so wouldn't it be great if every professional, every sort of manager, leader, supervisor had a coach that they could call on whenever they wanted to, with no limitation on time, for advice, for guidance, to bounce ideas? That would be great. Now,
Yes.
The founder of the Khan Academy, which I think is one of the finest educational kind of developments in the last 20 years, is saying in schools, there's one teacher between 30 pupils. In some parts of the world, it's 40, 50 pupils. At the luckiest pupils, it might be one teacher between 10 or 20. But with AI, every pupil can have a teacher who understands and has memorized everything, every piece of work they've done, can track their progress precisely. And so they were looking at AI. The Khan Academy is looking at AI as a fantastic way to help children learn, particularly children in parts of the world where they haven't got access to as much teaching as they, their families, their society would like. But then I look at, my daughter, I'm in one of the most privileged parts of the world, and still my daughter is in class sizes of 25, 30. Wouldn't it be great if she had a personalized teacher? So like you, I don't want to see a world where somebody is foolish enough to think an AI can do the job of an intelligent, well-trained human being. But what I do like the idea of is every intelligent, well-trained human being having a source of advice, guidance, and an ear that will listen uncritically as we talk through our challenges and make up our minds, asks good prompting questions that makes us think. So I think AI could give us that and make us better, more effective professionals.
Fantastic. I know that the governance framework of that is not yet defined, and the ethical ramifications of that is not yet defined, because those will be challenges for enterprises and those will be challenges for project leaders.
Yes.
But for team members, how can they prepare strategically? How can they be ready for those times?
I think we have to engage in continuous learning. As a project leader, we have to make time for our people to learn. We have to encourage them to learn. We have to give them opportunities to learn. And that's about laying on kind of lunch and learn or learning sessions. It's lessons learned from the project. It's people who do some reading, being able to come back and brief the team. It's people who go on courses. It's the ability to send people on courses. And I always think that the luck in the business world, in the world of work, is a combination of preparedness and your ability to spot opportunities. And therefore, if we are able to be prepared by continuous learning, and we have this situational awareness that allows us to spot opportunities, then we can hop from place to place. And as project leaders, our job is to facilitate that, to give our people the encouragement to learn and the space to learn, and also let them know, share, let other people have the benefit of our networking, so that the opportunities we become aware of, they too can become aware of.
Awesome. That and what you just said, because project leaders, now when it comes to even teachers in institutions, academic institutions, preparing kids, right? They also have a lot to do, because in some sense they are project leaders, right?
Yeah.
They also have a lot to do when it comes to, I can see everything you mentioned. So for example, like the personalized AI assistant that helps to adjust, review the context of the individual and make recommendations best suited for, capacity enhancement and all that. I see that happening. So teacher to student, I also see that happening, project leader to team members. I see that being very effective. Now, the last question I'll have today is if you could give one piece of advice to project leaders preparing for 2025, and this is specific to project leaders preparing for 2025. Not much has happened yet. We know that things are coming, right? Yeah. And different industries and domains, have adopted AI to varying degrees, right?
Yeah.
The banking sector, in fact, the BFSI sector being the last, usually, to adopt so many things. But what would be one piece of advice for project leaders preparing for 2025?
See, unfortunately, your question's been so good that the kind of advice I usually give at the end of an interview, like I've already given, the advice to keep learning and continuous development, and the advice to really focus a lot of your learning on psychology. So I'll pick something else that I think is really important as well. I think there is, as always, a huge amount of change in the world, and it's a cliche to say that the change is coming faster and faster, but it is. So I'll say it. And as project leaders, we're at the forefront of that. We are constantly implementing stuff, and we've got to juggle huge amounts of responsibilities, not least all of our team members as leaders. So the thing I would encourage project leaders to do is to think about how they can create as much headspace as possible, as much time for thinking. And because if we don't, we will just become reactive, and the kind of amygdala, that bit of our brain which just jumps into action when we feel stressed, will just take control of every situation, and that will not end well.
Yes.
So how do we create headspace? Well, I think the first thing we need to do is actually set aside time, literally. When I was working on my first big project as a project leader, I developed a routine for myself, which was a fortnightly routine, which became weekly. It was so valuable. And I called it my next bend routine. As far as my team knew, for about half an hour once a week, my diary was blocked out for meeting room 3. So one of my team members kind of came looking for me one day, and when he finally found me after I came back, he said, "There is no meeting room 3. You said you were in meeting room. There's no meeting room 3. There's only 2 meeting rooms in this block." And I said, yeah, meeting room 3 is coffee shop. Take yourself off with minimum distraction. Turn your phone on silent or even airplane mode. Just take a notebook and pen, or a tablet and pen, whatever, and just think. Let your mind wander. Don't try and squeeze out those ideas. Just think and let your mind wander, because then you will become aware of things that you're not thinking of. Secondly, you need to build resilience. We are under a lot of stress, and I think resilience is all about building up those reserves, those physical reserves, those emotional reserves, those kind of cognitive reserves, which means taking good care of yourself. As project managers, we have a duty to our teams to be able to, in a fit state, to lead them, to be in a fit state to lead them. Therefore, we need to eat well, we need to rest well, we need to exercise well, we need good relationships around us. And then we need to be able to delegate stuff that we are not the only people who can do. And by the way, my message to all project leaders is there is more stuff than you think that other people can do. There's less stuff than you think that only you can do. But if that is the stuff you focus on, and you focus on it one at a time, don't try and do that stupid multitasking thing. Just and then delegate as much of the rest as you can. That has three huge benefits. One is it gives you more time to do the really valuable stuff that only you can do. But secondly, it develops individual team members, which is part of your responsibility to develop them as a leader. Yeah. But secondly, it builds resilience in your team. It means that if you aren't there, there's someone else who can do it. And if you delegate the same thing to different people at different times, if one of those people isn't there, someone else can pick it up. So yeah, Headspace would be my one piece of advice.
That is very, very, very fantastic. That is very fantastic. Basically, listening to your answer, I just kept thinking about mastering self. You spoke to having a routine. Some people start and fail regarding routines because things happen sporadically so many times. So people are hard on themselves. People don't really need to be hard on themselves regarding a routine. Take the day as it comes, but plan. But mastering self, having a clear headspace is very, very important, definitely, so that one can see, to your point, one can see the things one is not seeing, right? Where you don't have any other voice in your head at that time. It's just you seeing things clearly, thinking through things and letting it come without forcing it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback. I appreciate the question, the answers you've provided concerning general project leadership, future challenges, skills and tactics for project leaders, preparation for team members and project leaders, as well as the last personal insight and advice that you gave. Thank you so much. Now, in conclusion, Mike, how can the audience best reach you?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of channels. I would say if people want to actually see and hear my thinking, my YouTube channel is at Online PM Courses on YouTube, and the website where you can see those videos, but there's also long form articles and the training courses that I sell is at onlinepmcourses.com. And if people just want to engage with me, LinkedIn I think is the best place. I am Mike Clayton on LinkedIn, so it's linkedin.com/in/Mike Clayton. And I always love it when people not only invite me to connect, but actually say, I heard you on the Forge podcast talking to Justus. I'd love to connect with you. So please do link with me and ask me whatever questions you have.
Fantastic. Now, I know you did provide as much detail. I just wanted to confirm, I know all the resources you have provided that you have both on your YouTube channel and on onlinepmcourses.com, as well as michaelclayton.co.uk. There's a lot there, but is there any specific thing that the audience should look out for coming from you very, 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 very shortly?
Well, if people are here because they want to learn about project leadership, then I would say Brilliant Project Leader. It's a book I wrote a few years ago, but it is still, despite the changes, the fundamentals are still there. Have a look at that on your favorite bookseller. It's published by Pearson, so it'll be available all over the world. And if you want to learn the basics of project management or day-to-day leadership, then have a look at the core project management courses or the project manager's day-to-day leadership course on my website.
Fantastic. All right, so to the audience, if you have learned something from this video, please remember to like this video, subscribe. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell notification button, because if you wish to continue to get great content connecting life and IT project management, that's how you will be able to get there. Now, until our next show, please remember, every man is the architect of his fortunes. Thank you.